Man, the more and more I see this film, the more I say to myself, this is truly the movie version to How I Met Your Mother, except with a satisfying ending. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy, kicking it old school in Romance Month as I review the film Definitely Maybe. Now, How I Met Your Mother, Definitely Maybe, that's what I meant, follows this guy named Will Hayes, who was a former political consultant turned advertising manager who's in the midst of a divorce. Bummer. Well, this romantic comedy is off to a great start. And one day, after a very interesting lesson at school, his curious daughter Maya begins nagging him about, why are you and mommy getting a divorce, and how did you and mommy met? I don't want to hear that, oh, we saw each other and we fell in love and happily ever after. I want to hear the real story, Dad. And so finally, Will decides to sit his daughter down and says, okay, I'm going to tell you the story about these 3 prominent girls in my life, but I'm going to change their names, so you have to figure out which one of these 3 ladies turned out to be your mother. And so he starts to tell the story, and she must piece together through what he tells her which one is her true mom. Now, for all my devoted fans to my channel, you probably already know my feelings about Definitely Maybe. But for those of you who are new, I am a huge fan of Definitely Maybe. It made my number 5 spot on my top 10 favorite romance film. I'll probably put a link right here so you can go check it out. And after seeing the film after some odd years of not seeing it, I think the last time I truly saw this film was in 2011, so about 4 years have gone by since I've seen this film last. I have to say, the film still holds up. It is a very solid romantic comedy that has a lot of heart to it and some solid performances. Now, at first glance, the film story may come off as unimpressive, just another average by-the-number rom-com with nothing special to add. It really does feel like the film version to How I Met Your Mother. In fact, you could probably argue that they plagiarized that show. But actually, the film's story surprises you. It's quite solid and very well told, with some unique qualities thrown into the mix. Like the fact that each of the 3 girls are not only relevant, but also represent a phase in Will's life. You got his first girlfriend, Emily, played by Elizabeth Banks, who represents the innocent, naive phase in Will's life. This young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed college grad who's ready to jump into the workforce and start his career as a political consultant. He has his whole hopes and dreams in front of him, and then he gets hit by reality, which I thought was a little funny but a bit forced. We'll talk about that a little later. Then you got his second girlfriend, Summer, played by Rachel Weisz, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who's very wild, risky, and adventurous, which represents the wild and risky, adventurous spirit that Will has in this phase. And then finally, you got April, played by Isla Fisher, who represents both the steady and unsteady elements and stages of Will's life. That right there is one element that not only separates it from How I Met Your Mother, but also other romantic comedies. Not only were those elements really unique, but as I mentioned in the premise, the film starts off with our main character getting a divorce. Not a lot of romantic comedies start off that way. And what I loved about this movie so much, and you might consider this a spoiler, but I mean, you kind of saw it coming. They don't get back together. They remain divorced throughout the entire film. And I actually respected the fact that the writer decided to keep them divorced instead of doing that cop-out happy ending where, oh, after telling my daughter the story, I realized I made a huge mistake and I gotta get back with my wife and we're gonna live happily ever after. Nope. That's not what happened. And again, I appreciate romantic comedies that are able to handle divorce in a more mature and realistic manner, which Definitely Maybe definitely did. Stephen, and oh my goodness. Next are the characters, particularly the main characters. They were very interesting and definitely fit the rom-com motif with solid performances from both the actor and the actresses. Ryan Reynolds does a great job as Will Hayes, not only making him come off as likable and relatable, but also humanizing the character and making us empathize with his situation, while also showing us his range for both comedic and dramatic acting. And it really really breaks my heart that not a lot of people give Ryan Reynolds enough credit for being a solid actor who can give great performances. And it's films like Definitely Maybe that highlight this. The next standout character slash performance in the film to me was Isla Fisher as April. I fell in love with this girl the minute that I saw her. The first interaction between April and Will was just priceless. It was funny, it was flirtatious, it was just a lot of fun to see these two just go back and forth with each other. And she just has one of the funnest personalities throughout the entire film. I loved her personality, I loved her cheerfulness, and I thought Isla Fisher did a really good job at portraying this character. And the last standout character slash performance in the film is Abigail Breslin as Maya. She is so freaking adorable and does a really good job at capturing the childlike curiosity and unfilteredness. I mean, there's many scenes where Maya says some things that are kind of taboo to talk about in polite society or just outside with a lot of people around. And Will's reaction to whenever his daughter would say these things is just priceless. And honestly, kids do act like that. When they learn about something that they're not familiar with, they're just very curious, like, why is this that? And why is that this? And what does this mean? I love that Abigail Breslin did a really good job at capturing this. And Will's relationship with his daughter and April were not only my personal favorites, but also the most developed in the film. I felt a genuine connection between these characters. And honestly, the last thing that I truly loved about this film was its ending. It ended on such a satisfying note, and I was just so pleased at the way that they ended it. Now, many of you may consider the ending very cliche. Oh, it's just a typical romantic comedy ending. But I personally felt like, after all this buildup, this is the ending that we deserved, and it's exactly what we got. And I was just so pleased that this is the ending that we got. It was a perfect way to end this film. And the ending song that plays, it's called Time of Times. It's so catchy. It definitely fits the whole romantic comedy vibe. And I'll put a link to it in the description so you can listen to it for yourself. But like I said, the ending, I won't spoil it. It's really good, very satisfying, and it just put a big old smile on my face. But it being a rom-com, it does have a couple issues with it. The first problem with this film is that the first 20 minutes came off a bit corny with many forced comedic moments. Like there's that whole, he's carrying all this stuff and then he makes a loud noise and everyone turns around and he says some type of funny catchphrase. That happens twice in the film and it just kind of didn't feel natural, it just felt really forced. Not only were there a bunch of forced comedic moments, but there were also many forced and unnecessary scenes in the first 20 minutes. One in particular that really stood out to me as completely unnecessary was a scene between Summer and Will. When I saw this scene, I was like, was it really necessary to have this scene? I mean, it just felt really forced, like they had to force this scene to happen. And it's clearly a forced scene when the actors' performances feel just as forced as the situation. The next problem with this film is that the first love interest, Emily, is way underdeveloped and completely bland. Out of all the three girls in the film, she was the weakest and she was the one that I did not give a shit about. Like, whenever I would see her, I'm like, oh, I totally forgot that you were actually a love interest in the story. And the reason that it's such a big issue is because the character had more potential than what the film gave her. She could have been a very interesting and well-developed character, and it would have been nice to see what her relationship with Will was actually like. Was it playful? Was it flirtatious? Was it innocent by nature? What was it like? We don't really get a full grasp of their relationship, and I just never felt a strong bond between them. And the last problem with this film was that many of the supporting characters were just as weak, underdeveloped, uninteresting, and bland as the first love interest. I mean, you got Derek Luke, who's been in many movies over the years, that plays Will Hayes' best friend, yet by the end of the movie, he just comes off as the token black guy of the film because he's the only black guy in the film, and his relationship with Will Hayes is terribly underdeveloped. You don't feel a strong friendship with them. You don't feel like they connect. He just kind of feels shoehorned into the film to give Will Hayes a best friend, even though he's not really relevant later on in the film. At the end of the day, it just comes off as a toss-away role, like a role that just doesn't matter whatsoever. So what's the point of putting it in there if you're not at least going to develop it? And as for the other supporting characters, they can be summed up by one statement. who gives a shit? I hate to do this comparison again, but the one advantage that How I Met Your Mother has over this film is that it had more time to develop some side characters, some supporting characters, and make them interesting. In this film, not so much. But even with all of its problems, overall, I still really enjoyed watching Definitely Maybe and still consider it to be one of my favorite romance films. It's a film that can make you smile, it can make you tear up a bit, it can hit you here in the heart, and it's just a really solid, cute, and fun film. And that's why I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It is definitely worth watching, especially if you're a fan of romantic comedies like myself. And if you would like to see a film that is very similar to this one, I can't really think of a film that's similar to it, but How I Met Your Mother really falls in this category. It has the same type of style, it has the same type of premise, and I'll also say check out The Proposal, which also stars Ryan Reynolds, who does a really good job in that film as well. But anyway, what did you guys think of this film? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, or did you find it really generic and dull and you just can't stand rom-coms? And let me know, who is your favorite lead in a romantic comedy? Comment below. Let me know. And before you ask, yes, I will be reviewing the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, hopefully later today, and I will be reviewing Jupiter Ascending. Please do not be shit. But until those videos come, guys, if you would like to be a part of the Black Critic crew and not miss out on a single awesome video on this channel for Romance Month, please hit that subscribe button below, like this video if you really enjoy it, and like me on Facebook to see all updates that will be coming your way. And I'm 21 II, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.